Epilogue. The Keno Challenge has become a big deal indeed. What began 13 years ago as a challenge issued by a disgruntled paparazzo who'd insisted Ricky Keno prove he was a real martial artist is now big business involving big celebrities and making big money for the Heal the World Foundation. Since the first time, the challenge has taken place on the second Saturday of November in the Rosewood Sports Arena just south of the USC campus. The event is always sold out. And because it is a charity event, ticket prices range from $200 to $1,000 ringside, but the biggest money is made through the pay-per-view venue. Neither the Keno family, the challengers, nor the many celebrities whom you will see perform here today ever receive payment. All proceeds go to both the Heal the World Foundation and 3 other charities bid on by challengers and celebs. As you all know, former actor turned Ameritech agent Joey Adams, stepbrother to Ricky Keno and also brother to the beautiful and talented Brianna Adams, I might add, has been the most recent representative of the Keno family for the past several years. Also, as you know, Joey was gunned down on the courthouse steps last month by a man he'd helped put behind bars. Everyone here at ESPN is happy to hear of Joey's recovery. Representing the family this year is Joey's older brother, Mark Adams. Mark is a 5th-degree black belt, a former All-American quarterback, and is actually a criminal defense attorney practicing right here in the Los Angeles area. Mr. Adams answered questions at a press conference last week, and we'll play that clip for you now. The screen flashed from the picture of Mark to a video of Mark sitting behind a desk, flanked by Ricky and Joey. I understand you weren't particularly happy about having to fight in this year's challenge, one reporter said. Mark shrugged. Well, the reason for me having to represent the family was hardly a reason to be excited. Still, I'm honored to represent them and will do my best to honor their faith in me. Those are hardly the words of a great competitor, another reporter remarked. I mean, I'll do my best doesn't sound very confident. Mark smiled. Well, everyone has their own style. Me, I don't talk trash. I just go out there and put down when the time comes. Are you saying your brothers do talk trash? Mark grinned and turned his head to smile at both Joey and Ricky. Yeah, they do. Still, I guess it's only trash if you don't deliver, and they most certainly deliver. They simply have a more flamboyant style than me. Different personalities, but same teacher. Do you think the injuries you sustained when you fell off the cliff last week will affect the outcome in next week's challenge? A female reporter asked. I hope not, he said, holding up a splinted finger. Can you tell us about the incident? She asked. I would rather not go into it, but in a nutshell, I fell, and my fall was broken by a tree growing out of the side of the canyon wall. I broke my finger and cut my arm pretty good. Mr. Adams, let me get to the point, another reporter said loudly. What the world really wants to know is about your affair with Bella Landau and if the two of you plotted to kill her husband. They'd been expecting it, and Ricky started to object to the question, but Mark stopped him. Let me just say this, Mark said calmly. I don't care what the world wants to know. I don't owe the world any explanations. Then you don't deny it, the reporter continued. Oh, I absolutely deny it, but the world is going to think what they want to think regardless of what I say. Look, the police know the entire story. They did their job properly. They looked into all the possibilities before they made their call. It was self-defense. Bella Landau has been terrorized for years by her husband. If she hadn't fired that gun, she'd be dead right now. And I, for one, am really glad that she had the guts to defend herself. And if any of you had seen the way Landau hurt her, you'd be as glad as me that he's dead. Neither Ricky nor Joey flinched at the statement, showing their absolute support for Mark's opinion. Mr. Adams, it's hardly politically correct to be happy about the death of another human being. Do you think I or any member of my family care about being politically correct? Political correctness is just a silly game. If you had seen Mrs. Landau's bashed-in face, or the fear in the face of her son, you might be able to understand a small part of the terror, pain, and heartache that human being caused. I believe in getting rid of the bullies on the playground, and Gordon Landau was a bully, and I'm glad he's gone, and I'll never change my mind or back down. You say you don't care about being politically correct? Then You would use a racial slur? Mark laughed and shook his head at the ridiculousness of the question. Well, I also believe in honor and integrity and class, and I have a great love for mankind, all of mankind, even those who are different than me. So, no, I would personally never use a racial slur. Ricky, I understand you've been key in training Mark, another reporter asked. Ricky smiled and nodded at the man in appreciation for the change of subject. Actually, I've been training Mark since he was 8. Some say Mark doesn't have the same competitive edge as you and Joey. Some call him a gentle giant. What are your thoughts on that? I think his teammates on the football field would disagree with that assessment, Ricky said. Joey sat up straight. It doesn't matter what our thoughts are on that. We'll know soon enough if it's true, won't we? Ricky, what do you think about? Eric turned off the TV in the dressing room. And that's enough of that. I got to go out and see to Jeffy. We'll be out shortly, Ricky said. You know, Mark, Eric said, the crowd doesn't expect to see you until you're bout. No one would criticize you for watching Jeffy's fights from back here. My sister is about to fight in her first Keno challenge, and I'm going to be there for her, ringside, cheering her on like the rest of the family. Eric nodded with a smile. Just saying. New scene. Cameras panned as the Keno entourage made their way across the arena to their designated areas. Casually smiling, they nodded at acquaintances, shook some hands, pointed at some friends, and waved. Sports announcers were having a blast with so many to talk about at once. Black Belt Hall of Famer Grandmaster Eric Keno, his wife Mart champion Shelley Adams Keno, his son Keno Challenge champion and movie star Ricky Keno, Shelley's daughter 2-time Oscar winner Brianna Adams, actor turned security agent and current Keno Challenge champion Joey Adams, still recovering from a gunshot wound to the chest, L.A. attorney, former All-American quarterback Mark Adams, artist, composer, doctor, genius, and extraordinary athlete June Flower Keno, known to all of her friends as Jeffy. Then, of course, there were the children of Brianna Adams and Ricky Keno, Eric and Taylor Keno, and Mark Adams' son from a previous relationship, Joseph Adams. The family was flanked by men dressed in black who were Ameritech agents. Already seated in the VIP section were more of their friends, many of them celebrities, along with Breeze and Bella and Logan. Jason and Angel, one of Jeffy's 2 best friends, Kimmy Lee, sat beside Justin and Lori Lee. A few rows up, Jeff and Mickey Davis sat with their 2 young sons, Jeremy and Daniel, with Mickey's younger sister, Marissa, Jeffy's other best friend. Country music legend Toby Nash sat with his children, 16-year-old Grace and 12-year-old Brody. His wife, Caroline, a celebrity judge on the dancing reality show, was busy filling her role as celebrity cheerleader. She brought a few of her pro dancers with her this time. Other friends of the Kenos were there to watch the tournament, who came all the way from Georgia, were John and Jody Apple, with son Jacob. They brought with them their good friends, Chaz and Lisa Stewart, and their children, Melena, lovingly called Lena Bug, who at 11 years old was a breathtaking redhead like her mother, and Charles and Matt, ages 5 and 4 respectively. And who could miss sitting on the other side of Jeff Davis's family, the Tanners? Father and son, Keegan and Gabriel both had dark hair, and then there was a sea of blondes, beginning with Lizzie Tanner, who'd recently been busy promoting her second country album on Toby Nash's label and would be singing tonight. In a neat row in front of her sat 5 gorgeous blonde-haired, blue-eyed angels, or so young Eric, Logan, and JoJo thought. Heather, about to be 15, twins Rose and Violet, who were 1 year younger, and twins Daisy and Lily, another year younger still. Everyone cheered as Mark and the family approached. Breeze blew a kiss at Joey. Bella smiled sweetly at Mark. But the focus right now was on Jeffy, who would be fighting first. Good grief, look at her, Breeze said to Bella. She's got a body like some superhero. I feel sorry for her opponents, Bella said. Jeffy looks so mean. She's just focused, Angel said. Have you ever seen the Kenos compete? I've watched bits and pieces of a few challenges, Breeze said. Well, you're in for a treat. It's like they can turn it on and off like a light switch. They can be laughing and joking around 1 minute, and when it's time to fight, they become a mean machine. It will be interesting to see if Jeffy's opponents even come close to giving her any competition. What do you think, Jason? Breeze asked. Will her opponent stand a chance? Jason shook his head. I doubt it. Jeffy's been sparring against only men since she was born. She's quick, she's powerful, she's smart, and she's psychic. I'll be surprised if anyone can even gets in a punch. I'll be surprised if anyone even gets in a punch. Jeffy looked up at them as if she knew they were talking about her, and she smiled and waved. Hey, Jeffy! Marissa and Kimmy yelled together. Kick some boot, hey! Jeffy laughed, but her eyes searched for Cameron. She'd hoped, because he would know how important this was for her, that he would come to show his support, even if it was just as a friend. But he wasn't here. I heard he went to Europe to do some studying, Eric said from behind her. She turned and smiled sadly at her father. Who's being psychic now? Sorry, baby girl, but it's pretty obvious. I'm pretty sure he'd be here if he could. Now, what happened to the focus, huh? She sighed, drew a cleansing breath. It's right here. It took another 15 minutes to get through the preliminaries, and then the challenge began. Jeffy Keno blew away her competition just like Jason predicted. The crowd was taken with the small, quick Keno beauty who showed such skill, such class, such honor, and compassion in the ring. It was the first time the world had gotten a good look at her, and they liked what they saw. She was in complete control. She showed amazing sportsmanship when one of her two opponents became agitated. She showed humility and gratitude. Add that to the fact it was her foundation that had done so much good in the world and brought medicine to both third world countries and those in the U.S. who struggled, clothed and fed the poor, funded research to find real cures for disease. In one night, she'd become America's sweetheart. When her part of the challenge was over, she joined the other celebrity cheerleaders, as she always had since the first challenge when she'd been 7 years old. Along with Sister Bree, Caroline Smith, the two pro dancers Caroline brought with her, there was Sasha, a gorgeous R&B Grammy winner, Chen Lu, the famous Korean ice skater, and Katie Ash, the new teenage heartthrob actress. The next part of the challenge was 2 bouts fought by the winning Keno school student. This year it was Bohai Lin, a 24-year-old second-degree black belt. He, too, was amazing. He, too, won both his bouts, the last one just barely by the skin of his teeth. Are you ready? Joey asked as he put Mark in a headlock. They'd returned to the dressing room after Jeffy competed and had been stretching and warming up. Mark's broken finger was taped securely, as was the deep gash he had in his arm, and even though it had been 2 weeks, it was still sore, and they hoped it wouldn't be a huge distraction. Normally, a broken finger would be reason enough to drop out of a competition. However, in the original challenge, Ricky had fought with 3 recently healed broken fingers and had rebroken one during the fights. So, for Mark, a broken finger could not be a factor. Mark jumped in place several times. Yeah, I need to get out there and get going. Don't like this waiting around stuff. I hear you, Ricky said. Eric placed his hands on Mark's shoulders. I believe in you, Mark. You reach down inside yourself and find that competitive edge. I know it's there. I've seen it in plenty of ball games, especially when you're coming from behind. But today, no coming from behind. Stay on top. Stay out front. There are quite a few who don't believe you have what it takes. Prove them wrong. Mark nodded. I've been misjudged most of my life by outsiders. It's nothing new to me, and it doesn't bother me. It won't even factor into my win today. Eric smiled. That's what I wanted to hear. Let's go get him. When Mark made his way to the ring, the crowd roared. When he threw his first punch in the first bout, they roared. When he sent the first man down and had to back off, they roared. The entire fight, all 3 bouts, was like every pitch in the bottom of the 9th in the World Series in Yankee Stadium. Every single thing Mark did, the crowd roared. If there was such a thing as home field advantage in a martial arts tournament, Mark had it. His opponents never stood a chance. They were all such good sports. He almost felt sorry for them. Almost. He knew that was where the gentle giant thing came in. His ability to have compassion. He didn't give in to it, though, not until each bout was through. He easily did away with his first opponent, had a decent equal match with his second opponent, and then the fatigue factor came into play. His third opponent was the biggest and the best of the 3. Mark had to fight him like his life depended on it. He had to dig deep to find the energy and to fight the pain in his hand and his arm. Eric, Joey, and Ricky repeating their mantras to him kept him focused. Dig deep, bro. You can do it. Focus, Mark. Block, punch, block, punch. Show us what you can do. Come on, Mark. Show us. Show us. When the third bout ended, Mark had no idea if he'd won. He moved to his corner and sat while Eric attended to him. He had a cut on his cheekbone, his body poured sweat, and he could barely see what was happening. When he was called to the center of the ring for the decision, he almost stumbled. When the referee raised his hand and declared him the winner, the arena went crazy. Mark thought of the Rocky Adrian scene and smiled, even though he knew Bella wouldn't come running into the ring. She'd show him very soon that she was proud of him. Ricky, Joey, Eric, Jason, Justin, and Jeff tossed him up on their shoulders and carried him from the ring. Jeffy jumped up to high-five him. Jojo, young Eric, and Logan hugged him and jumped around like monkeys. Bella and Breeze hugged the crowd that hugged him. He realized he felt happy and satisfied. He felt proud of himself. He'd trained hard. He dug down deep and done something amazing, and he'd proven himself to the world, but most importantly, to himself. The crowd dispersed, and Mark headed into the dressing room to dress before he had to do some interviews. The shower was comforting to his sore body. It was quiet in the room where he dressed. He'd just finished tying his shoes when he looked up to see Joey standing there. "Hey, I didn't hear you. I just came in to speak to you before you get swamped again and before you get home and are surrounded by all the people." "Okay. Is something wrong?" "Not a thing, thank God." Mark smiled. It'd been a rough month. "I've always been proud of you, Mark. Proud that you're my older brother. I've always looked up to you." Mark nodded. "I feel the same about you, Joey." "I know. I just thought I should tell you, especially after thinking I'd lost you, that, well, geez, I can't get the words out." Mark smiled at his little brother. "Now there's a first. I've always thought of you as a little orator, ever since you signed up for that first drama club meeting." Joey gave a soft laugh. "That was a trip." Mark moved forward and held out his hand, and Joey took it. "Let me see if I can put words to what you're trying to say. I love you, brother. Almost more than words can say, more than actions can portray. I'm proud of you, and I'm grateful to have you in my life. What's mine is yours, and I always got your back." "How's that?" Joey nodded. "Well, that about says it. Except for one more thing. I told you to prove yourself to me only to motivate you for the challenge. You never have to prove yourself to me because I know you, Mark. I know you like I know my own heart." Mark jerked Joey forward, and they hugged. "Well, can we get in on that?" Breeze asked, Bella standing by her side. They broke apart and, smiling, reached out to the women, drew them into their arms, and kissed them soundly. New scene. Shelley watched the action from the balcony landing near her front door. It was indeed a crowd. They had a great many friends from all across the country, and she felt happy and content that they were all here under her roof. The past few months had been quite an adventure. She had almost lost a grandson, a soon-to-be grandson, and both her sons. It didn't make her bitter. It made her grateful and gave her renewed ability to live in the moment and enjoy each precious thing. Her eyes sought out her husband, who was working the crowd, stopping to chat, shaking hands. Her husband, who never seemed to tire, who was the same wonderful man he'd been when she first met him and fell in love more than 20 years ago. There were so many children in the house tonight. She noticed they'd naturally divided into age groups. In one corner, young Eric, Jojo, and Logan entertained and played host to about-to-be 13-year-olds Daisy and Lily Anderson, 11-year-old Lena Stewart, and 12-year-olds Brody Smith and Jacob Apple. Shelley smiled. 5 boys to 3 girls. She wondered how that was working out. 8-year-old Taylor Keno and 9-year-old Gabriel Tanner were seemingly having a very grown-up conversation about some application on Taylor's iPad. 6-year-old Charlie Stewart was playing with his 4-year-old brother Matt and with the 3- and 4-year-old Davis boys, Dan and Jeremy. The foursome were being amazingly well behaved, at least for the moment. 16-year-old Grace Smith and about-to-be 15-year-old Heather Anderson stood together talking, their faces quite animated about whatever subject matter they pursued. About-to-be 14-year-olds Rose and Violet Anderson stood near Jeffy, their eyes large in complete adoration. Next to Jeffy, her best friends, Kimmy Lee and Marissa Daly, chatted with her and were kindly including the young Anderson girls in the conversation. Jeffy glanced up at her mom as if she'd known she was thinking of her. She smiled and winked, and Shelley blew her a kiss. Jeffy looked around the room, taking in the same scene as her mother, but from a different perspective. Here were so many people whom she loved dearly. She glanced at Mark. She'd been right about him. He had been in danger. Now, though, he stood with his arm around the woman he loved, who was smiling and looking more radiant than Jeffy had ever seen. Jeffy saw her father chatting and shaking hands as he made his way around the room, doing his best to make sure everyone in his home was comfortable and feeling welcome. Ricky and Bree were uncharacteristically snuggled up in a corner with each other rather than socializing. She saw Toby Nash and his wife Caroline talking to Angel Lee and Lizzie Tanner. Keegan Tanner was gesturing largely as he spoke to Jason and Justin Lee. A feeling came over her, and she glanced to her left to see Joey pulling Breeze close to him. He leaned down and kissed her and pulled away and nodded at her and smiled. He turned toward the guests. "Attention, everyone," Joey said loudly. "I have an announcement to make." The room quieted. "It's with great pleasure that I would like to take this opportunity to tell all of our family and friends that I asked Bree Sheridan to marry me, and she consented." The room erupted in applause and congratulations. Someone proposed a toast, and Mark and Ricky quickly went around filling everyone's glass with champagne. Eric grabbed a glass for himself and another for Shelley and headed up to the balcony. He came up behind her and kissed her neck, and she turned to him and took the offered glass. "Are you happy, Shelley girl?" She wiped a tear from her eye. "So very happy, Eric." "Look at what God is creating," Eric began. "Look at this home full of his warriors. These are some of the strongest, faithful, most loving people I've ever known, and it fills my heart to see the wonders and the miracles God is putting together. I don't know exactly what God's plan is as we wait for the return of Jesus, but I know there is a plan, and I am so grateful that we, you and me, sweet Shelley, are part of it. I just hope I can remain worthy." "Well, I have faith in you, Eric," Shelley whispered. A series of toasts began with Mark going first. So many toasts were offered that it was surprising everyone was still on their feet. Feeling overwhelmed by the emotions around her, Jeffy excused herself from the group. She took one last glance around. Joey was kissing Breeze. Mark had Bella pulled up tight against him and was whispering in her ear. Bree and Ricky were kissing. The Tanners were kissing. Toby and Caroline were just nibbling on each other's lips. Chaz Stewart had one hand on his wife's waist and the other twisted in her mass of red hair. Justin and Lori Lee were hugging. Kimmy's parents just pulled away from a heated embrace. Jody Apple was sitting on her husband's lap and had her head bent to him. Jeffy looked up toward the balcony to see her mother and father had their arms around each other, their foreheads pressed together as they whispered to each other, and Jeffy's eyes filled with tears. She was happy for everyone, happy for all the love she felt around her, and yet she felt lonely, so very lonely. She was a stranger in a strange land. She was different from everyone. She was a freak. Would she ever find what everyone here had found? Would she even recognize it when it came her way? She thought she had it at the age of 15. Apparently, she was not a very good judge of what a good relationship was, because she'd had no idea why her boyfriend was so unhappy with her. Quietly, she made her way to her room to ponder the next move she would make in her life. She had a feeling it wouldn't be going back to the hospital. She had much greater things to accomplish. Back downstairs, Mark turned to Bella. "Should we tell them?" She shook her head. "No. Let's let Breeze have the complete spotlight. I got to have it when my parents married me off the first time. It's her turn." "Aw, Bella. That's why I love you so much. You're so thoughtful." She gazed into his warm eyes. "Are you happy, Mark?" "Happier than I ever thought I could be. I've come to that grateful conclusion recently." "And just how did you come to that conclusion?" she asked. He laughed. "I guess I free fell to it." And that is the end of D&D number 7, Warriors in Jesus' Name. Coming up next in the series, used to be the final installment but is no longer, is D&D number 8, Juneflower in Jesus' Name.